Balinese book is not Indian. Section 4. Santo Saba works. Made on the basis of academic studies as a scientific discourse to restore Indonesia's true history. Worship of the god Agni in Bali. In Balinese tradition, the Agnihotra ceremony is the highest and oldest ritual in existence because it has existed since the Vedic era, from ancient times in India and in Indonesia, especially in Bali. In the past, the Agnihotra ceremony had caused a big fire. Finally, the king ordered that Agnihotra be abolished or at least abridged. Therefore, this ceremony had experienced a shrinkage and changed into a smaller form to become Pasepan and censer. In Lontar Kala Tatwa, the word Homa is found, which means it refers to the implementation of Agnihotra. Here is an excerpt. The behavior of Ing Yajna Madana Dana, Kasukan Sarwa Mulya Saraja Yogya then Duluran Bojana Mawang Sarwa Fala first, then the witness sang Hyang Siwadatya, Pinuja Danira the Siddhyogi, the Queen Natha also has authority to Amanguna Yajna Mankana. Means. The Yajna procedure is by distributing funds of pleasure. Everything that starts is the contents of the kingdom, accompanied by the offering of dishes and tubers and fruits, as a witness to Sang Hyang Siwadatya, who is adored by the priest who has perfect knowledge. A king can perform the yajna. That is so. Furthermore, the use of Agnihotra Aswamedha Yajna is explained. Gunaning Aswamedha Yajna Kauruhakan Dentanaku, Ikong Yajna Anjantasakan Sazan Rad Bawana, Umalangakan Sarwa Gela Ing Loka Makati Tang Ila Ila Kabe, Mawang Sarwa Krura, Bath students, Magalak scholars, Sarwa Marana, Marmaning on Anangaskara Janong Prani Sarwa Sarwa Teking Daitya Danawa Giant, Buddha Kala God Bhattara. Ika Samadaya Anarpanakena Jinawe Homa, then Sang Hyang Agni's Stana is where Gumseng Ikong Lengkaning Buwana Kabe Mangkana Krama Act de the Vainana Yarayadeg Ninga Swayambua Manu Pri Kapajhan Ing Buwana. Mangkana Yan Hana Bumi Kaputingan Queen Twin Kahilangan, Yadiapan Ilang Sankayang remembering Kening Soda, Kening Tema Mawang Dermida, Dermangala, Sira the Yajamana also Wihikan Re Samangkana. What is the Queen Winasa Dening Satru Yajna Wenong Dening Sira Batari Uma Padi Anastunka Swameda Yajna Parang Lansang Hyang Saraswati. Sira Authority Umuleganjan Kahayuning Loka Swarga Kayangan Twin Ring is Kadermidan. Mangkana is also good. What's with the Yajamana? Sira Nawak Ing Senkan Paraning Sa Rat Kabe. Sira Pangadeganing the Weda Ches Hyang. Which when interpreted, this means, for the sake of the Aswamedha Yajna, know by you, son, is a yajna to liberate the whole world, remove all defilement in the world, especially all sin, everything that is creepy, everything that is unseen, everything that is evil, all plant diseases, because everything is purified by that yajna. What is it? It is an animal, a living thing, a human, to a Ditya, Danawa, a giant, Buddha, Kala, gods, and Bhattara. It will all be purified by making Homa, as Sang Hyang Agni's burning stana, burning all the defilements in the world. This was done by a wise man during the reign of Aswayambhuva. Manu hopes for a solid world. Likewise, the procedures that must be carried out if there is a country kingdom that has no leader or dies, even though he died because of a curse, bad luck, bad signs, he the Yajamana knows that, because the king will perish by the enemy, then it is proper for Bhattari Umapati, worshipped by performing the Homa Aswamedha Yajna and the worship of Sang Hyang Saraswati. He is the one who can restore the goodness of the world, including heaven and the holy place if you experience a disaster. Such is the procedure, since the Yajamana is called board chess, the origin and return of the whole world. He is the embodiment of Sang Hyang Katarveda. But, unfortunately, until the end of Kala Tatwa's Lontar, There is no mention of the order of the Agnihotra rituals, what are the completeness of the ceremonies, as well as the necessary ceremonies that also occur in several Balinese lontars which include the Homa Yajna Puja. In Raspati Tattva, it is also mentioned about the worship of Lord Agni to destroy all the accumulated sins. Then Shiva, like Sintamani, fulfills all desires. In the lontar he is called Siwagni, as for the lontar quote. Sakwe Ning Papa Nika the Yajaswara, against Ikong Wasana Kabe, Uteka Tinunwan de Batara Ning Siwagni, Rehuis lost Ikong Karmawasana, Tanmula Alonging Samadhi Nira, Tanmula Batara Re Sira Yan Mankana, Yatamachurian Sintamani Sira, Foreign Sadyakaharep. Now is the time when you are ready to use the Policyswarian Danira, Lontar Raspati Tattva. Means. All sins and karmawasana of a Yajaswara are destroyed by God in Siwagni. When the extermination of karmawasa is complete, then the concentration becomes firm and strong. God is always in him. Because of that he is said to be Sintamani, everything he wants is fulfilled, as a manifestation of his he gets 8 Aiswatya. If we open the oldest sources of Old Javanese, then in the initial part of Kakawin Ramayana I 24-30, when Prabhu Dasaratha asked for the birth of his sons led by Maharsi Asiyasauga, the descendant of Gadi, we get information about the Agnihotra ceremony as follows. Serving Ning Yajna Ta Humadang, Shri Waksa Samita Puspa Ganda Fala, Dadi Gada Kasnadala Madhu. Mawang Kusagar Awati Wedya 24, Lumekas Ta Sira Mahoma. Predati Pisaka Giant Minantram, Buddha Kabe Inilagakan, Foreign Mamina Rakong Yajna 25, Sakali Karana Jinawe, Awahana Len Pratista Sanidya, Parameswara Ananjan Ongan, Umungu Ring Kunda Banama Ya 26. Sampun Batara Inina, Tinati Sakan Tang Minyak Sasamyamaya, Opponent Kasnadala Madhu, His Shri Waksa Samita Rowang 27, Sang Hyang Kunda Pinuja, Kuru Makulilingan Samatsyamongsadadi, Kalawan Sekal Niwidya. Aname Salwar Nakong Marasa 28, Risadeng Sang Hyang Dumila, Ninawajakan Ikanang Niwidya Kabe, Osadi Len Falamula, Mawang Kambang Ganda Dupadi 29, Sampun Pwa Sira Pinuja, Binoyanan the Maharsi Parapurna, Kalawan Ta Wiku Witness, Winnersita 30. Means. The sacrificial offerings were ready, sandalwood, firewood, flowers, fragrances and fruits, condensed milk, butter, black sesame, honey, pot, tips of reeds, powder and broth. He began to perform a fire sacrifice, Agnihotra, evil spirits and so on. Pisaka and giants were roasted. Buddha Kala were all expelled, everything that would interfere with the sacrifice. All ceremonial equipment is available. Prayer and equipment for the presence of the gods. Lord Shiva, who was requested by his presence, was present waiting for the offering. After the gods have been simplified, sprinkle, soma, oil, black sesame and sandalwood along with firewood. Fires are worshipped, surrounded by kuru and fish, meat and condensed milk, along with rice offerings, mixed with everything that contains flavor. When the fire in the furnace was burning, all the offerings were offered, medicinal herbs, fruits and roots, fragrant flowers, incense and so on. After he was worshipped, after the worship ceremony, a treat was served to the Maharsi, along with the Wiku Pandita, who were witnesses. They were honored to be presented with gifts to him. Another old Javanese source is Agastyaparwa, who describes the various kinds of yajna, Panka Maha Yajna, which in his description of Diwa Yajna explicitly states that Diwa Yajna is an offering to Sivagni which is meant to be none other than Agnihotra. While the Kauravasrama stated that Diwa Yajna was an offering ceremony in the form of food and the recitation of the Stuti and Stava mantras, Hoikas, 1975, 247. Shows that the Vedic chant is a means in his yajna that is almost the same as the performance of Agnihotra. In the Kakawin Sudasoma 79.8, Tantri Kamaniaka 142 and Nagarakatagama 8.4 it is stated that the Agnihotra or Homayad ceremony is the center of the sacrificial ceremony. Another source in Old Javanese is the book Adiparwa 197, which states Mangarpanakan Udakanhali, Magawe Agnihotra, which means offering hand-washing water and carrying out Agnihotra, Mardiwarsito, 1981-13. In addition to the aforementioned sources, the implementation of Agnihotra or Homayat is also described in Old Javanese literary books such as Brahmaniya Purana 127 and 178, Varadaparva 12, Ramayana 5:9, Sutta 111, 109.4, 110.6, 119.12. Nagarakatagama 83.6, Nidasastra 8.1, 1.114, Tantu Pagelaran 90, Kidung Harsajaya 6.85, 6.93, Arjunawijaya 53.3, 53.4, Parta Yadnya 1110, Sasasamukaya 64. Slokantara 41, Tantri Kamaniyaka 38, Tantri Kadiri 138, Kalan Orang 122. One of the efforts to purify oneself for a sadhaka is to do the Agnihotra or Homayat. Sutta sounds like Enjing Medius, Asutta Sarira, Masrya Swana, Mamuha, Majapa, Mahoma. Silakrama. Lamp. 41 Clean your name, clean yourself daily, pray to Sang Hyang Surya, perform worship, perform japa and perform Homa Yadnya. These are all original dharmics recorded perfectly in Bali. Agni in Balinese tradition is not just fire. In the book of Sasrasmaskaya, beautifully written on this subject, Mangalana Amuha Ring Sang Hyang Triagni Thought Sang Hyang Apui Tiga, practically, Ahawaniya, Graspatya, Sitagni, Ahanita Naranira Apui Ring Asuruan, Rumatangai Food, Grayapatya Naranira Apui Ring Winarang, Apam Agni Witness Kramanang Winarang Ekalaningwaha Apui N Ring Manusawa, hold back the Hyang Triagni Naranira Sarada Puja. Quote. Free meaning, namely, obedient to worship the three holy fires which were named Triagni, namely Ahawanya, Graspatya and Sitagni. Ahawanya means food cooker, Graspatya means fire of the marriage ceremony, as a witness, Sitagni means fire of a corpse. These are the three holy fires, they must be respected and worshipped. Fire is also called the leader, Anyanaya, also as a priest Purohitam, because Ida Sang Hyang Widai Wasa has allowed the sun, the indisputable nature of God in fire, namely as a witness to the universe. Likewise, a priest in leading a ceremony will manifest himself as Shiva Raditya by turning on Astra incense Dipa mantra. It is this who presides over the ceremony. Based in the quotation above, that Agnihotra or Homayajna is also carried out in Indonesia, Bali, and as a support for this data we can still study it through ancient archaeological relics and traditions that live in society. One of the ancient remains is the existence of a pit of fire, Yadnyasala or Vedi, where the Agnihotra ceremony is held. This place or fire hole can also be seen in one of the Gunung temple caves, which is believed by residents to be Garya Brahmana. There is an hole in an altar in the middle of the cave, which is apparently surrounded by a seated Agnihotra ceremony performer. This is proof of the original dharmic that existed in the Indonesian archipelago and not from India. The legacy in the form of the hole where the fire was held was the Yadnya Kunda, Yadnya Sala, which was also strengthened by the presence of a fire hole in the roof as a vent for the smoke coming out of the place where the Agnihotra ceremony was held. Names such as Karan, Kahan, Hyang Api Hyang Agni, Hyang Jeni, and Sala indicate the place associated with the Agnihotra ceremony. In the literary context, incense is Tadwa and Dipa is Sakti Tadwa, because incense comes from the universe, being Dipa from Arda Kandra is used to strengthen, stabilize, sharpen worship. Arda Kandra is the upstream symbol of Purusa from Onkara while Onkara is the symbol of Pradhana. Observe the priest's Veda while performing the solar savana in the morning, the so-called Asep mantra. That is the holy cry asking God Agni to purify and invite to lead the ceremony. The sacred teaching on Agni is also seen in the Tri-Sadaka, the Katrini, three priests as ceremonial leaders in Bali. The third was awarded the weapon, namely 1. The Shiva weapon is Agni wind. 2. The Buddha Jeni Rayasara. 3. The bachelor jerks Nasara. With this, the three of them purify the Tri-Bhuwana, also called Tri-Bhuwana Kaitan, Usana Bali. In the book Sara Samhita Karana, manuscripts, translations, explanations, of Veda Parikrama by G. Puja M. A. Shish, the Organization for Translating the Vedic Scriptures, page 241, explains that in Stiti mantra, The process of sthiti, purity, begins with prakrti, purusha, atma, spirit, sun, and fire, agni, from Shiva. All of them are represented in holy characters. Sa, Ba, Ta, A, I. Then c. Hoykas in his book, Surya Savana, The Way to God of a Balinese Shiva Priest, N.V. Noord-Hollandse Uitgevers Maatschappij, Amsterdam 1966, explains the differences in Hindu beliefs in India, South, and in Bali regarding the position of Lord Agni. This proves that Bali keeps the original dharma which in the past was brought by the ancestors of the Indonesian nation, the Saka or Aryans, to India and gave birth to Buddhist, Jaina and Hindu teachings. In Bali, the position of Dewa Agni is equal to other deities, and is linked in the Tri-mandala, which consists of Agni Mandala, fire, Surya Mandala, sun, and Candra Mandala, moon. The Wiku priests of Gama Tirtha, the origin of the name Hinduism, Bali, are guided by Lontar Arga Patra, which contains a summary of the Veda Parikrama. In the Vedic Parikrama, Gegalaran Pandita, Sulinga, the worship of the god Agni is done several times, namely 1. During the preparation for the Swakarna and Suprakarananya ceremonies, Astadupa and Deepa worship. 2. During the tide of Siwamba and consecration, a Dipa Pradaksa Puja is performed. In it implied the meaning of incense and Dipa. Wijal Ingdupa Sakan Wiswa, Dipa Sakang Ardha Kandra Landapi Semba. Which means, the sharpness of the devotion with, the dupa which is created from Wiswa, Sarwa Alam, and Dipa which consists of Ardhakandra, crescent moon, or in other terms that the manifestation of the idol's creation will be intensified by using the incense and the Dipa. So the spells used are Om, Amdupa Deepa Astra Yanama Swaha, prostration to Am, incense and Dipa, Astra, it. The word Astra in this mantra means Engastati, stati, not Astramantra. Besides that, when chanting the mantra Dipa Pradaksina, Siwaba is purified by means of Siwaba Pradaksina 7 times around the lamp, Dipa, as is done in Tripada. The Pradaksina in this Dipa is a symbol of God as Agni Tadwa, the Hyang Iswara, Agni Tadwa Sira, the Sinaba. In Lontar Arga Patra there is a mudra, which is the form of hand and finger movements as Nyasa to manifest Sanghyang Widi in the mind and offer or ask for something to him, beginning with worship of Lord Agni. The Trimandala Mudra is performed with the mantra Om. Ing Ring Shring Kaprang Asra Hung Dwadasa Kaladmain Sadwa Rajo Adipada Yanama. Om Agni Mandala Yaswaha. Om Ing Ring Shring Kaprang Asra Hung Dwadasa Kaladmain Sadwa Tamo Adipada Yanama. Om Surya Mandala Yaswaha. Om Ing Ring Shring Kaprang Asra Hung Dwadasa Kaladmain Sadwa Tadwa Adipada Yanama. Om Kandra Mandala Yaswaha. At the end of the worship there is the Sankepi mantra, in which the request for purity to the Tri-mandala is manifested in the form of incense and Dipa, in addition to the other elements of the Panka Upakara, flour, water, double and kasada. Strictly speaking, in Bali worship of the god Agni is not carried out in special rituals such as Agnihotra or Homa Yajna. Until now, the Arga Patra Lontar has become the guide for Wiku Siwa, Bada, and Vaishnava in Bali. One important note. One of the characteristics and evidence that the Balinese people have worshipped the god Agni is, at the end of every worship mantra there is always the word Swaha, which is his magic, and always uses incense when chanting the mantra in his Panka Yajna ceremony. This is the original dharmic that colored mainland India. In an even older tradition, how the stakeholders do, Sihi, in the Gajalaran stakeholder. Hitha Paduka Bhattara Brahma, Bhattara Vishnu, Bhattara Iswara, Bhattara Mahadeva, Bhattara Siwa, Bhattara Sadasiwa, Bhattara Paramasiwa, Bhattara Triguna Sakti, Bhattara then Linganing Buwana Kabe, Malinga Ring Kayangan Iraki Pad, Punaka Pitakan God Gana Angantapuhor Man. Malaheg the Hyang Homa Ring Steamed Mengan, Majago, Sandalwood, Tumedan on the Paduka Bhattara Bhattari Ring Kayangan Sakti. Likewise, the rolling fire facility, which is usually lit every evening in the Penjur when the Galungan arrives. Unfortunately, this tradition is often forgotten. The tradition of lighting the linting at dusk in the Penjur's refutation, whose goal is none other, constantly reminds about the purpose of the heart in this life process. Sources of tradition include the use of Pasepan by Pamangku, Dukan or village Sedahan, showing also the implementation of Agnihotra in its simple form, Unfortunately, the tradition of using Pasepan by offering Darang Asep or Kastangi now seems to be fading. The important thing in offering Pasepan is offering Darang. The Asep. This is a simplification due to the unification of the sects that had previously developed in Bali. Agni's story in Bali is not simple. That fire is also symbolized as a burning passion, knowing no one in time of wrath will break anything mercilessly. Agni also received the Sarwa Baksa, eater of everything. But if fire is understood, then it is like 1. A P to Kep, on Segahan, which is made from 2 pieces of coconut fiber, the base of which is Topic Dara. This symbol of harmony is also called by scholars as Yoga Jiwatman, who resists all temptation. 2. Practice, and torch, both of them are tranquilizers of Buddha Kala, a guide to where the Buddha at that time should be headed. 3. White fire. This fire is a street light for the spirit of the person who died, Pitra Yadnya, when their bodies are brought to the grave. 4. Fire Tetampug. This fire is in a series of Makaru ceremonies, made from 3 pieces of bamboo. If the bamboo is burned, it will cause an explosion, but the condition is that at the end of the bamboo it is made a sampion, symbol that the bamboo has been turned on. 5. Sam screen. Similar to Dipa, which is used as a means of making rain. 6. Tableware fire. Similar to a bonfire, used as purification of blood that has been scattered by accident. Dripping blood is believed in Balinese tradition to live as an evil force. 7. Ganjarung fire. Used as a baby protector, as an aid for Nyama Papat, Kanda Pat Rare, which is placed in a place to bury the placenta, used until the baby is 42 days old, Pidung month. 8. Rolling fire. Wear the fire in the Manusa Yadnya ceremony, which is made from the end of a stick wrapped in cotton dipped in coconut oil Nyuh Surya, which is made of 3 sticks. Used as a guide for choosing a baby's name. This old tradition is very interesting, where the prospective baby's name is hung on a rolled rod, then ignited, whichever name choice was last burned. That's the baby's name. 9. Blenkong. The wick lamp used by Jro Delong in the Wayang Kulit performance is a symbol of the sun god, Buwana Aging, or the universe, the human Jiwatma, spirit, or Buwana Alit. Besides that, the Blenkong fire is a symbol of the god Agni for the Balinese people. Api always helps and accompanies from birth to death. Then the fire is very important and always chanted in every mantra in Bali. The above is not found in India, because this is the original Dharmak depicted in Borobudur recorded perfectly in Bali. Mudra mantras, Sengkepi and other mantras in Bali are very sacred, so that only a Wiku, Sulinga, Sanyasin can recite them. Unlike the implementation of Agnihotra or Homa Yadnya, now many Walaka are actively participating in them. Say those sacred mantras. All that is not wrong, but only different understanding. De Bali Sulinga, Bhiksuka, is more respected and given the authority to pronounce the Veda, while Sadaka, Grahasta and Wanaprasta are not allowed. If there is a desire to say, it is highly recommended to do Madhwajati first, in order to get the title of Munkuka, Sani Asan, Sulinga. However, it is enough to use worship for incense, with the mantra Om. Ang Dupa Dipa Astra Yanama Swaha. This is the worship of Lord Agni by means of incense, which is performed at the beginning of the Yadnya or prayer. Samkhya is the original word for the teachings of the archipelago Indonesia. This is the explanation of the Samkhya in Bali, which explains that the original teachings of the archipelago which were recorded in Bali already exist, and the textual word Samkhya is written on the Kalasan inscription. This is the original Dharmak originating from the previous Indonesian archipelago that colored India. This teaching has been written on the Kalasan inscription. The inscription already existed, namely 700 years before the inscription was written or before a teaching in India called Hinduism or Buddha was born in India. Rishi Agastya, for example, is depicted as the main character in the 14th century Javanese text Agastya Parva. The text includes Puranas, and a mixture of ideas from the teachings of Samkhya and Vedanta which are considered the basis of Hinduism. Samkhya is the original word for the teachings of the archipelago Indonesia, not the teachings of Indian Hinduism. This can be proven in the writing listed on the Kalasan Prastis as follows. Namo Bhagavatyai Aryatarayai. 1. Yatarayatyamida duakabhavadbi magnum locum velokya vidivatrivadhara 40. Sa. Va Surendranaralokavi Buddhasaram Tara Disatvabimatam Jaganirara. 2. Avarjya B. Maharajam Daya Pankapanam Panamkaranam Sailendra Rajagurubas. Tarabhavanam Hai Karidam Srimat. 3. Gurvajnaya Kritajnas C. Taradevi Kirtapi Tad Bhavanam Vinayamahayanavidam. Bhavanam Kapyaryanhiksunam. 4. Pankuritavanadirapanamadir Adesasastribarajnya Tarabhavanam. Karidam Craving Fire Kapi Aryanhiksunam. 5. Rajye Pravardamane D. Rajnya Sailendravam Satalakasya. Sailendra Rajagurubas Tarabhavanam Kurtam Kurtabi. 6. Sakanarpakaladatar Varsasata Saptabir Maharaja Root Gurapujartham. Tarabhavanam Panamkarana. 7. Grama Kalasanam Adata Samgaya Saksina Kurtva Pankaratavanadiripa. Dasadyaksan Mahapurusan. 8. Buradaksainiam F. Atula Data Samgaya. Rajasimhana Ailendrarajabupar Anapara Palyar Santatya. 9. The Pankuradibi the Tavanakadibi the Tirupadabi. Patibiska Sadubi. Fire Ca. 10. Sarvan Evagamina Parthavendran Buyo Buyo Yakat Rajasimha, Samanyoyam. Dharmasadar Naranam Kale Kale Polanayo Bhavadbi. 11. Anena Punyena Viharayena Praditya Jata, G. Arthavibhagavijnya Bhavan 2. Sarv Tribhavopapana Janajananam Anu Sanijnya. 12. Karyanapanaamkarana Sriman H. Abhyakat Bhavinarpan, Buyo Buyo. Vidivad Viharaparipalan Artham iti. Translation and author's study of the Kalasan inscription, which proves that Sailendra dynasty did not embrace Indian Hinduism. Respect for Bhagavati Arya Tara. 1. Having seen the beings in the world who are drowning in misery, he crosses with the three true knowledge, he Tara who is the only directional star in the world and the place of the gods. Note. Sa, the correlation, sa, ya, is translated as he, yang, he, that. 2. A sacred building for the beautiful Tara has been ordered by the teachers of King Sailendra, after obtaining Maharaja Daya Pankapana Panamkarana approval. Note. B. Avarjya. The word avarjya, from the root vrj plus a, is in the absolutive form. 3. By order of the Guru, a sacred building dedicated to Tara has been appointed, as well as a building for the noble Guru skilled in teaching Tad Havanam. Vinayamahayanavidam Bhavanam has been established by the masters of the sacred structures. Note. See Kritajnas. The word Kritajne has the same meaning as Karmajne in the Denoyo inscription, which means experts, Sarkar, 1971-39, note number 37. 4. The sacred Tara building and likewise the building belonging to the monks. Reshi, doers of ancestral teachings, who have been established by the royal officials, called Pankura, Tavana, Tirapa. Note. The author, monk, Reshi, performer of ancestral teachings, reinforces the meaning of one word, in order to avoid interpreting only one teaching understanding. 5. A sacred Tara building had been ordained, by King Sailendra's teachers in the growing Ailendra jewel kingdom. Note. D. Rajye Pravardamane. The word Pravardamane, from the root ver which means to grow, is formed in the active participium with the locative case ending because it describes Rajye, which means in a developing kingdom. 6. Maharaja Panamkarana constructed a sacred Tara building in honor of a 700-year-old guru. It has been built 700 years since this inscription was founded, which means that the teachings that are embraced by the declaration written on this inscription do not adhere to the teachings that were only present at the time this inscription was written, which currently teaches from India to the archipelago Indonesia or Buddhism, not Hinduism. Note. The word Gurupujartham. Gurupujartham means aims to honor the teacher author builds. The author disagrees with this word because the word construct does not appear in this sentence, for the word approach with the intention of establishing, building in Sanskrit as Jagra, wake up. 7. The village of Kalasa has been given to the Data Samgaya after summoning the witnesses, prominent people from the village of Pankura, Tavana, Tirapa. 8. Unsurpassed alms, Bura, given to Samgaya by lion-like kings, Rajasimha, by kings of the Shailendra dynasty and successive rulers alternately. Note. F. Buradaksinium. Buradaksina word. The word, Bura, has several meanings, many, extensive, radiant. The Samgaya, Samkhya-gunas theory is popularly discussed, developed and refined by various schools of Indian philosophy, including Buddhism. Samkhya's philosophical analysis also influenced the development of various Hindu ethical theories. 9. By the Pankura and his followers, the Tavana and his followers, the Tirapa and his followers, by the soldiers, and the religious leaders, then later. 10. The king is like a lion. Rajasimha repeatedly asked the kings who would come so that the binding dharma would be protected by those who were forever. Note. Fastener, bound. 11. Well, by giving Viharayana, all the bhavantu of holy knowledge, the law of cause and effect, and birth in the three worlds, can be understood. Note. G. Pratityajata. The word Pratityajata, according to Lokesh Chandra, 1994-73, the meaning equated with the meaning of Pratitya Samutpada * Viharayana, place of ascetic worship, Vihara. Monastery, monastery meditating place. Vihasa, place of meditation. Vihantan, monastery, place of worship. 12. Karyana Panankarana is asked repeatedly for the noble kings to come to always protect, Abhya Kate, this important holy building, Viharaparipalan, according to the rules. Artham iti. Note. H. Abhya Kate Abhaya. Attitude of courage. Kate. Kata. Heart, feeling, H. This is the explanation of Samkhya in Bali, which explains what it is and how it is. This teaching has been written on the Kalasan inscription above. The inscription is already 700 years before the inscription was written. Before the teachings in India were called Hinduism or Buddhism. The original teachings of Nusantara Indonesia Samkhya, which have been written on the Kalasan inscription, are proof of this teaching as a basic teaching that previously existed in the archipelago. This teaching has existed for more than 700 years in Java, recorded in Balinese culture. The points of Samkhya's teachings. The founder of this philosophical system is noted by chroniclers as Sri Kapila Muni, who is said to be the son of Brahma and Avatara Vishnu. The word, Samkhya, itself means number, and this system provides a number of universal principles totaling 25 pieces, so the name Samkhya is very appropriate. The term Samkhya is also used in the sense of speech, or philosophical recollection. Samkhya's teachings had a big influence in Indonesia. The Tattva Nyana, Raspadatattva book is the Samkhya teaching in Savapaksa. Both of these books are in Old Javanese. The Samkhya teaching must be a very old teaching. The proof is that both the Sruti and Smrti as well as the Purana books show the influence of the Samkhya teachings. According to the construction tradition, it was the Kapila Rishi who wrote the Samkhya Sutra. In the Samkhya system there is no analytic investigation into the universe, such as real existence, which is an arrangement according to topics or categories, but there is an artificial system starting with a single tattva or primordial principle called prakrti, which develops or produces prakaroti, something else. The Samkhya philosophical system is one of the philosophical groups classified as Astika. In its teaching it wants to metaphysically put forward the main points of the teachings ranging from Prakrti, Purusa, Triguna, creation of the universe, form of evolutionary creation. In his teachings Samkhya accepted two ultimates, namely concerning Purusa and Prakrti, namely the spiritual and physical principles. From these two principles the creation of this universe with its contents. This Samkhya theory of the origin of things gives rise to Prakrti's teaching as the final cause of this world. All the objects of this world, whether body, mind, feeling, are limited and are dependent on other things, which is produced by several elements. This universe is a series of effects from a cause. For it must be more subtle than the effect and it must want to grow into the object of dreams. The last cause must be a principle which is not the result of any cause. An eternal cause which is always the source of the creation of this object world. Prakrti, Sanskrit, consists of the prefix pre, means before, or first, from the root word kr, means to make or produce. So this prakrti means that which exists before anything is produced, caused, the first source of all things, the original material from which all things spread and into which all things will eventually return. It is also called pradhana, principle, because all effects are found in it and it is also the source of everything that exists. This last cause is what is called Prakrti in the Samkhya teachings. Because Prakrti is the first cause of all this universe, it must be eternal, because it is impossible for impermanence to be the first cause of all that is in this universe. The existence of practice as the last cause can be seen from the following conclusions. 1. The objects of this world from the intellect to this world are finite and dependent on one another. Therefore there must be an infinite and free from dependence as the origin of all this that exists. 2. The objects of this world have certain general characteristics, which cause their owner to be happy, difficult, neutral. Therefore all of these must have the same source of these three causes. 3. All of these causes flow from an activity of a cause that contains potential in it. Therefore this world of objects must contain an element because of this world. 4. An effect arises from its cause, and then it infuses the following effect. An object of experience arises from a cause and this cause arises from another cause. And so on until the first cause. At the time of the fusion of the bodily elements, they will melt into atoms, atoms become energy, and so on, until the first cause. So according to Samkhya's theory about the cause of the origin of these things is Prakrti is the cause. It is the cause of everything, and therefore it has no cause itself, it is the first principle of the universe pradhana. It is called avyakta, because it is an invisible state of influence or effect. It is called anumana, because it is a real thing. Subtle and invisible which only draws conclusions from its products, and as an infinitely active force, it is called magic. It is a very subtle, mysterious force that gives birth to and restores the universe in a cyclic order. Its immense subtlety renders itself unmanifest and incomprehensible, we can only infer the existence of the products or effects which it brings. Purusa is the highest type of consciousness. Samkhya calls Purusa the same as spirit, soul. Everyone feels that he exists and has something. The feeling of being there is a natural feeling. Purusa does not experience changes in place or form, but Prakrti undergoes changes. In itself, Purusa only functions as a spectator or witness, not as the doer or the connoisseur. His mental life is due to his relationship with the development of the practice which becomes the means of his heart. Purusa is a sangha, detached and as all-pervasive and eternal consciousness, but the manifestation of his presence in this world is that at the time of samsara it is never outside the body. With regard to such matters, it seems Purusa and Prakrti act as one I, or one person, but it is only concerning the observable human person and not the ultimate truth. The real and supreme being is Purusa. So that Samkhya said that spirit is because that spirit is incarnate and will not exist, cannot be expressed in any way. According to Samkhya's teachings, spirit is different from the senses, mind and reason. It is not the object world, it is the spirit of consciousness which is always the subject of knowledge and never the object of knowledge. It is a lasting awareness in which there is no change in activity. It is without cause, eternal to infiltrate all but free from all the bonds and influences of this object world. The existence of a Purusa or spirit was stated by Samkhya as follows. 1. The objects of this world such as tables and chairs are to know the interests of something other than oneself. Something that has an interest must be something that is conscious of this worldly object as a means of fulfilling its interests. That was the Purusa, he realized. 2. All human beings seek deliverance. This implies that something can achieve deliverance. Those who can achieve deliverance are Purusas. 3. All objects of this world, including the mind, and intelligence must be monitored and directed by a consciousness so that it must be watched and directed by a consciousness so that it can achieve its goals. Therefore there must be something directing the object of the world, and that is a Purusa. 4. All the objects of the world give pleasure, trouble, or neutrality. Feelings of joy, difficulty only have meaning if someone can experience it. It was Purusas who experienced it. According to Samkhya, there are many spirits, each of which is associated with one body. The existence of many spirits is based in the following considerations. It is clear the difference between life and death. The birth or death of another person. Likewise with the condition of deaf Buddha. If everyone has the same spirit, then someone's birth or death will cause the birth or death of another person. Likewise with deaf Buddha. But the reality is not. So there is not one spirit but many. If there was one spirit for all beings, then one person's activity would have to cause the others to be active. But the truth is, when one sleeps, the other may be restless and restless. Men and women are different from the gods. Likewise with birds and wild animals. This difference would disappear had there been one spirit. Therefore there must be many spirits. The development of the universe. Prakrti will expand into a mini-style when it comes to Purusas. It is through this connection that the Purusa's practiveness is influenced just as the limbs of our body can move because of the presence of the mind. The evolution of the universe could not have happened just because of the Purusa, because it was passive. Nor can it happen out of practice because it is unconscious. It is only because of practical Purus relations that this world can exist. The Purusa-Prakrti relationship is like the cooperation between the lame and the blind to get out of the forest. They work together to achieve their goals. The relationship between Purusa and Prakrti causes disruption of the balance in Triguna. What is dependent first is Rajas, which causes the other uses to be shaken too. Each of these uses tries to overcome the power of the other. Then there was the separation and unification of the Triguna, which caused the emergence of this second object. The first to occur in practice are Mahad and Buddhi. Mahad is the great seed of this universe, while Buddhi is the element of intellect. The function of the Buddhi is to give consideration and decide everything that comes from the inferior implements. In its pure state it is Dharma, Jnana, Vairagya and Aishwarya, i.e. virtue, knowledge, lust and divinity. It is very close to the spirit, so it reflects spiritual consciousness. Ahamkara, or my feeling, is the result of the second practice. It immediately arises from Mahat, which is the first manifestation of Mahat. The function of Ahamkara is to feel my taste. With Ahamkara the self feels himself to be acting, who wants to have. There are three kinds of Ahamkara according to which purpose is superior to that desire. Ahamkara is called Sattvika when the Sattva element is superior, Rajas when it is superior, and Tamas when Tamas is superior. From Sattvika arise the 5 Jnanendriya, the 5 Karmendriya and the Manas. From this Tamas was born the 5 Tanmatra, while the Rajas, energizing both Sattvika and Tamas to change the mana, serves to guide the organs to know and act. Panka Tanmatra are the essence of sound, touch, color, taste and smell. All of this is known only to people because of the effects it causes, whereas he himself cannot be known because of its very subtle effects. From the seed of sound came Akasa. From the seed of touch and sound comes air. And from the seed of color, sound, and touch comes light or fire. From the seed of sound, touch and color comes water. And from the seed of the other 4 Tanmatra bodies came the earth. In accordance with its development, the gross elements Buddha have properties in accordance with their more dominant constituent elements, namely, space ether has sound properties, air has touch properties, fire has color or shape properties, water has taste properties, and the soil has odor properties. This is the original philosophy of the previous Indonesian archipelago, the original Dharmic coloring in India, recorded in the Samkhya text on the inscription. Out of all these coarse elements developed this universe and everything in it, the earth with its mountains, rivers, trees and other living things, all of which was a change of behavior. However, this development does not give rise to new principles such as the development of Mahat. So the gross element remains in everything that is produced, and there are only various kinds of changes that always take turns in a period. For example, a tree that grows and dies and is decomposed and returned to its constituent elements, namely the 5 Maha Buddha earlier. However, the first development, from Mahat to gross elements, remains throughout the cycles of time and is described only at the end of the cycle. So during this process of dissolving the universe, the products come back in a motion opposite to the motion in the development stage which preceded them and finally enter into practice, and this is what is called the shrinking or closing process. There is no end to samsara, or the play of practice, for the cycle of evolution and contraction has neither beginning nor end. The universe is things that are made, not things that make. And Otsa's again after the formation of this universe, is not perfect, because it requires a spirit world that is a witness and who enjoys the contents of this universe. If there is a real spirit, then there is a need for moral adjustment, the pleasures and troubles of this life. The evolution of practiveness into the world of objects allows the spirit to enjoy or suffer according to the bad deeds. But the ultimate goal of this practical evolution is deliverance. The process of the universe being a parmana, evolutionary process, that develops into an existing reality, a major change from nothing asa, to being existing sat, or a change from one form into a new form or from abhawa to be bhawa. Practical development into the universe is the last development. In this condition there are various changes that always take place alternately within certain boundaries. For example, a tree that grows and dies and is returned to the elements that make up it Panka Maha Buddha. But the first progression from Mahad, intellect or volition element, to the gross element or seed remains throughout the mass cycle, and will only be separated at the end of the cycle of time, Kalpa. When there is a process of dissolution of the universe, the products of practical development during the first developmental period are those that preceded it will return with the opposite movement, and finally enter into practice. The original Dharmic teaching taught the existence of triguna, consisting of sattvam, sattvika, derived from the word sat, means true and tva means having properties. Thus sattva means the true nature, which is meant in this statement as the nature of lightness for things, and good for living beings, humans. This is the original philosophy of the previous Indonesian archipelago, the original Dharmic coloring in India, recorded in the Samkhya text on the inscription. Continues to Part 5. By Santo Saba.